Okay, so we have a pretty peculiar matchup here. We have Malians versus Mongols. Now, Malians is a civ that loves to be able to get their houses and their pit mines and get all the passive resources. Well, Mongols is the civilization that loves to do those early barracks pushes and do some real damage. Now, Sortof is a guy who will be able to handle this pretty well. And you can instantly see the two houses that he makes, they are under the range of the TC. At the same time here, Sassy is going to make his uwu pretty quickly. And now with these villagers, he's actually not making a barracks. Now this is very uncommon when you're playing against Malians. When you're playing against Malians, you need to ensure you shut them down. But this is something Sortof expects. And that's why he's all the way out here to try and see, are there spearmen coming? So with this, if he sees, okay, yes, there are spearmen coming, then he needs to react to this. And he would not be able to build more houses. He wouldn't be able to build these houses here. But he notices, okay, there's no spearmen coming. My opponent is already on gold, so I can just keep making these houses. I'm not going to be in any danger from here on. Now, behind this, Sortof is just going for the usual Malian split, where you just put all your villagers onto food. While at the same time, Sassy is going for a pretty normal age, feudal or normal timed feudal age. So both of these players, they know that this map, very often the gold spawns very close to the TC. So he wasn't going to be able to burn this pit 9 without taking damage on his units. So that's why Sassy decided, hey, I'm not going to be doing that. Sassy moved his TC to the back here so that he can get it on top of the deer and the wood line. Now, I don't know if this is the best spot. I think sometimes you do want to cover a little bit of a different angle, but at the same time, you just want to make sure your TC gives you the most value. Both of these guys now aging up into age 2. Now let's look at their landmarks. The Mansa Quarry is the pretty standard decision here for most people. When you're going with the Mansa Quarry, you have something that gives you gold per minute, no matter what. It is just always living its best life producing gold. Deer Stones, on the other hand, is also the standard decision here. Because if you are going to go for the other landmark, you are going to have traders. And that's not something you want. Not on a map where your market is right behind your base. Because now if you move your Deer Stones over here, your opponent is Deer Stones. If you move your Silver Tree over there, your opponent is very easily going to be able to intercept your traders, and your trade post is not going to give you the most value. Now, out here, Sortof is just aging up with 4, and this is very, very standard. The other thing to notice is, he has most of his villagers here on wood. You usually want to leave 4 villagers on food, so that you can constantly produce villagers. Now, he left a little bit of a buffer, so that he can only leave 3. But for you, at home, use 4 villagers. Do not use 3 villagers in this scenario, and just keep chopping. Because with this, Sortof can now decide what he wants to do next. With all of these houses that he has around here, he is making a mill. And as he's aging up, while having the mill, he wants to ask himself, what am I going to use my resources for? So, in Age of Empires, it's important to make sure that you use every bit of resource. Your resources are there for a reason. You should use it. So, same with Sassy. He's got 5 on gold. He's got 8 on food. And when you see something like this, it's usually one of 2 things. He's going to constantly make Keshiks, or he's going fast castle, which would be pretty crazy with Malians. Or with all this gold, he could just get upgrades. That is also a very honorable choice. The same over here with Sortof. He can now decide, I'm going to go for wheelbarrow, or I'm going to go for professional scouts and try to get all of the deer here on the map. Because this is a pretty juicy spot to do so. I just realized, as I said this as well, Sassy can also just build the stable and go for pro scouts himself. Because he has so much gold already, he can now use the stable to produce scouts and go and do professional scouts too. But with the amount of villagers he has here on wood, it's going to take a very long time to do so. Now let's see, Sortof ages up, he instantly goes for a stable. And with a stable, you can already tell exactly what upgrade he's going to go for. He has 9 on wood. That means he wants to make sure that he has enough wood to get the Pro Scouts upgrade. He's not spending any of his gold. So him getting ready to click this upgrade is going to be important. Now, instantly getting his Warrior Scout upgrade because he has the extra gold. I say extra gold, but just like that, he changes his mind. So I fully believe that this is something that he saw. And he was like, hey, I need to do damage to this. If I go for Pro Scouts, I am going to be in danger. Because I see that my opponent has 4 villagers here on gold. Or 5, technically. So when you see this, you know your opponent is getting upgrades, going fast castle, or getting a lot of Keshiks. One of those. So that's the problem. He needs to make sure that he responds to this. And he decides, instead of going Pro Scouts, he decides, okay, I'm going to use my gold, I'm going to get a wheelbarrow, because it doesn't matter what he goes for. I'm going to have an answer to this. So you see, he goes for 2 Keshiks. These 2 Keshiks is so important, because with those 2 Keshiks, you are forcing your opponent to make units. Your opponent can't just sit back and be like, la Keshiks are my base. He has to do something about this. And with the rest of the stone that he has, he's making scouts because he wants to go and pick up the deer. So let's go see what these guys decide to do. So he gets the scout upgrade so that this scout can now do a lot more damage to the villagers. And Sassy is going to need to be able to respond to this. He can't just ignore this scout because this scout, he's going to kill villagers and he might just do that. So as we can see now, the Keshiks are chasing in and he kills the villager, but the scout does go down. He does get the extra sheep on his side. But now, Sortof, instead of going for his Pro Scouts like he wanted, he uses the gold. He realizes, hey, I floated all of these resources, I might as well use it. And this is exactly what I told you guys earlier. You need to use your resources. If you have it, do something with it. Just because your plan was Pro Scouts and it didn't work out, it doesn't mean you now have all this gold. You have to use the gold. Always. Now, Sassy, he has 2 Keshiks. These 2 Keshiks can now go and try find some damage. So these 2 Keshiks can go onto the wood line, try to chase in from here. They can try to chase in over here. They can go and burn down some of these houses. So those Keshiks, their goal is just to make sure that you keep your opponent super busy so he cannot go out on the map and do whatever he feels like doing. You need to make sure that you punish your opponent and force him to react while he gets the rest of the deer with his Pro Scouts. Back onto Sortof. Sortof now has to ask himself, what production building am I making to handle these to handle these Keshiks? So he is already making sofas, but sofas cost gold. They're quite expensive. So he has a barracks and he's going to start making donzos from here on out because he needs to find something that can handle this. So we see him getting the donzo upgrade and his split is very specific here. He's got 10 on wood. Usually 9 to 11 on wood is perfectly good. And the rest of them onto food and only 1 on gold. He will most likely start to rally more onto gold as the time goes on. And just like that, you see those Keshiks? They are trying to find some damage. They're trying to charge in somewhere. But Sortof doesn't sit back in his base. Sortof is the kind of guy who's going to now go and counter-raid. He knows that there were things on the gold. He knows he needs to do some damage. So now with all these scouts coming out, Sassy is going to be able to have a pretty good time at picking up these deer against most other players. But Sortof, he's very aggressive. Now he has to be careful because these Keshiks are going to run around and try to charge in. So he has to ask himself, okay, where am I going to put my donzos to make the most out of this? And with that, you see the sofa already picking up a kill. Now, this is insanely good for Sortof because, yes, he's killed 2 villagers now. But what he just did is he forced Sassy off of gold. And Sassy, he was a very happy camper just being out on the gold and having him being the aggressor. The problem is now, those 2 Keshiks that were looking for damage, they would either need to go back to defend against the sofa, or he needs to invest into more Keshiks. So now he cannot just keep making all these scouts. He actually needs to make units to defend his base, because this one sofa is causing all this problem. And now, the two Keshiks, they're gonna be able to pick up a kill too. You see them getting the villager out here because that's their job. They have to go and find damage. And sofas. He just keeps making sofas. Sortof is now fully committed to the sofa lifestyle. And behind this, very silently and sparingly, adding these cows. So the cows are going to give him all the passive resources he needs, 75 food per minute now, so that he can keep producing these units. And Sassy is now desperately trying not to get gold units. He's trying to get something he can afford, archers. So he can't keep making these Keshiks, especially not against these Donzos. He needs to find a unit that he can actually kill these Donzos with. So he's getting as many archers as he can. You can see now using his stone to double produce archers. And you usually don't want to be using your stone to double produce archers. You want to use them on Keshiks most likely. But we do see the archers trying their best at focusing these Donzos, but they do have to be careful of this sofa. So now, this is the part of the game where things get a little hairy. You can now decide, hey, I am gonna try to commit and destroy you, or I'm gonna go to castle. Now Sassy is considering this, and I want you guys to look at the split. So with the split, he has a 9 on gold still. He's getting upgrades with the gold, because remember, when you have the gold, spend it. Now, behind this, he's still just picking up deer. So all of these scouts are constantly doing their job at the back here. But he needs to make sure that he survives, because this is a pretty scary army, and this is just going to get worse and worse. Sortof knows, I have enough units that I can keep putting this pressure up. I have enough resources. I have my second pit mine, so I already have that passive resource coming too. So I'm going to be able to keep doing this. Now, because there's no spearmen on the side from Sassy, he's able to run into these units with his sofas. And even if he loses the sofa, he doesn't want to do that, of course. He's able to trade out against these archers, so both sides losing some units now. But he realizes, hey, this might be a little bit of an overcommitment. So now he's constantly just pulling back, reinforcing, and with these units he's going to start taking more and more fights. Sofas don't heal, so he does need to be careful with them, and that's why he also mixes in these scouts. So the scouts are also like a little bit of a front line. And all of a sudden, all these units have just moved out. They now need to be careful again, because these guys are just going to go straight for the archers, and the archers, they run a little bit slow. So now constantly trading back and forth, getting rid of these archers. And you can see Sassy is using that stone to just try and double produce. Behind all of this, instead of using the gold on an age up, he's decided, I'm just making more Keshiks. That's what I need to do. My opponent is not going to stop this pressure. I need to go back and sort of just quickly clicking off more and more villagers. Now the problem is, there are sofas coming towards your base, there are donzos, and you're still double making archers. So this doesn't feel too good here for Sassy. Sassy needs to find a way to keep up with all of this production. But the thing is, he's got a lot of food in the base. The problem is just, he doesn't have anything else. He's going to run out of gold, and he's trying to produce as much as he can, but you can see he's now building a barracks here at the back, because he realizes, hey, with this, I'm going to need some other units as well. He realizes the pressures might be a little bit too much, and sort of realizes, hey, I don't want to keep fighting into his TC, because now he's going to start moving backwards. So sort of asks himself, what do I do now? Sort of goes for other food or for other resources. He's asking himself, how can I do damage to Sassy? And from his perspective, he needs to go and target the food. Now Sassy has picked up most of the food on this side, and he still has a bunch of deer over here. Behind this as well, sort of, is putting the scouts so that he can ensure that he picks them up himself. You now see sort of going for professional scouts because he realizes how much food this is. But again, Sassy having the same thought. He's like, hey, what do I do to shut this down? What do I do to do damage to my opponent? Hey, I'm gonna go to his base and try to do a raid. The problem is, both of them have the same idea. And the army is now a little bit split here, but this could still be very good for Sassy, as Sassy is now running into this army of sofas, and he's going to be able to do some good trades. Sort of realizes, I'm going to lose these sofas. I need to make sure I get some value from them. So he's already going to get some damage done to himself, so he goes to the villagers and he tries to kill some villagers. And this is usually the best thing you can do. You can ensure that you do as much damage to your opponent so that you don't do this all for free. And you see that's exactly what Sassy wanted to do. He also wanted to go and do a little bit of damage to his opponent. But the problem is, Sortof already had the Donzos in position. And from here on out, Sassy has already lost 7 villagers. This is pretty much over, and Sortof will take the game. So, what Sassy should have done better here is not lose villagers. I don't know, that sounds dumb, but if he did not lose villagers, and he had this push he has now, he just kept making units, Sortof would have been dead. Completely dead. But now, behind this, Sortof has a lot of food. He's getting his own professional scouts coming in. He's constantly producing units. So when Sassy does commit, he is going to be in a lot of danger. So yes, now Sortof just asks himself, how can I keep slowing Sassy down? And the answer is, keep on raiding. But Sassy learned from this. He's putting 3 spearmen here to the back. And now he's trying to get the deer. He sees that Sortof is also pro-scouting, and Sortof is just trying to keep his army as safe as possible, while making as many units as he can. Now, with these sofas, he's going to try to land an attack. And the moment he does, Sassy needs to attack forward and he needs to do damage. So the sofas run into the spearmen, but there's just so many of them, they can even take on the spears. Sassy realizes this and he decides, okay, I need to go for damage too. But the archers are focus firing the houses, and that's not good. Those guys are just not able to focus fire the units they need to do damage against. And again, now Sassy lost 2 more villagers, and these sofas are nowhere close to getting shut down. Sassy, with this, gets a little bit overwhelmed. And now he's just attacking houses, instead of actually being able to do damage to the villagers. But the problem is, the sofas are still causing problems. You can see these sofas, even if they go down, they're still doing damage. They're still forcing the opponent into his base. And Sortof is trying to play it safe, but he knows he needs to move out just a little bit to try and defend against this. Now the villagers, being very far out, they need to go find a different spot. And we can see them moving now to the back wood line. But Sortof is playing this as carefully as he can, because he knows that, hey, I've done economic damage to my opponent. I can just sit back and let the economy do the talking. So now these guys are going to be chopping, but they still need to be careful. And Sassy needs to go and ask himself, where do I do damage to my opponent? Yes, you can burn houses. Yes, you get extra resources for burning. But you also need to ask yourself, how am I going to attack the villagers? Now, pulling back, he's trying to take these trades as effectively as possible. But if we look at the resources per minute here, the food per minute for Sassy has gone down significantly. And the food per minute for Sortof is still doing great. Now, Sassy won this fight, and he did a really good job at this. But the problem is, Sortof can keep making units. He has enough production buildings here at the back to keep making sure that he gets the reinforcements. So now he pops in and out of the TC. Sassy is doing everything he can to try and shut this down, and he's doing a really good job at this. He's going to do a significant amount of eco damage as well. The villagers are starting to go down. Sassy is doing an amazing job at diving. But again, the difference is the food per minute. Even if he kills the same amount of villagers, the food is already set up for Malians, and Malians can afford to lose a few villagers. He just lost all of his army under the CC, and now it becomes a lot easier for Sortof to replace his army than it does for Sassy to replace the army. So now Sortof, he's still producing. He realizes, hey, that was a significant portion of the army, and now he will be the one that outproduces pretty quickly. We see the food per minute going down, but that's just because he's pulled off, or he's idled out these villagers for a little while to try and fight under the TC. It's going to skyrocket here in a second. But both of these players still have a lot of food. And this is pretty nice. I mean, for both of them, they still have a lot of food. But the difference is, this is passive food. This is food that Sassy doesn't have to work for. While on Sassy's side, he needs to work for this. So both of them having the same amount of villagers on food. Let's go look at the food per minute. And, ooh, this one should increase in a bit. Let's give it a second. As they drop it off, yeah, slowly you can see this going up. But now the Kurultai is coming out for Sassy. So Sassy is going castle. And getting the Kurultai is usually something you want to do if you are being aggressive. But remember, Sortof is always asking himself, where do I do damage to my opponent? So he's still constantly looking for damage. The problem is, Sassy is now already moved out onto the map. He's making sure that he doesn't lose anything. But those sofas, they see the age up, they try to get us around, and you can see Sortof moves perfectly, like a Zerg player. He goes and he surrounds, and he just tries to get another few villager kills again. So now Sortof can ask himself the question, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to go for castle myself, or am I just going to keep making units? And with the 5 archers that he has in queue, it feels like he's not committing to a strong feudal. He's still making units, he just wants to delay his opponent. Now, even though there are towers in the middle of the map, he's going to be able to put this pressure on him and cause some idle time. But you can see with these sofas, because sofas are so tanky, they're like these mini knights, they are causing a lot of problems. And now, Sortof, he is just sending the rest of his army to the middle of the map. The moment he adds sofas here, you know he's committing to feudal. The Kurultai in the base is now going to be able to heal up a lot of these units. But you see Sassy, he's idling his economy, he's a little bit overwhelmed, and this is a very heavy push here from Sortof. And this is what I was talking about when it comes to replaceability of the army. Malians have passive food. They're not just getting the food from the cattle here, and now look at that difference that I was talking about. He is now getting all of these passive resources, while on the other hand, Sassy is going to struggle. He just hit castle, but even with castle, he cannot do much. We see the Kurultai moving forward so that it can heal up these units at the front, and this is a really good move here. But Sortof is not committing to this. He's just poking, and he's ensuring that Sassy cannot move out of his base. He's ensuring that Sassy needs to keep producing. But he realizes pretty quickly, oh, I have a lot of units. But behind it, he also has enough resources to go and age up himself. So I'm gonna end the game analysis here.